Welcome to Advocate with Dr. Rufus Lowe, where we aspire each and every day to eradicate the silence of good people who allow bad things to happen. And in doing so, we can together provide a new and glorious path forward for all. Our conversation will be based on the teachings of my latest book entitled Shadow Tolerance, Your Guide to Accepting Racial Difference. Shall we begin? So we're going to continue our discussion about colonialism and its impact on the roots of racial understanding. But let me first start by providing a disclaimer, okay? And my disclaimer has something to do with having or using history as a way to basically teach and to frame our discussions. So let me just go ahead and say something about that real quick, and I may have to do it again as we embark on historical referencing. I know that the truth is daunting and fearful to some people. Abolishing critical race theory from schools and libraries is proof that truth in history is scary to millions of insecure people. So much so that many in history go through great measures to hide anything related to history that might be considered critical, as it prefers or as it refers to race. History, however, is the most perfect, in my opinion, form of truth. Why? Because history is not only the truth, it's the fact. Facts in history, however, can be altered by selfish intents of evil men seeking to frame a narrative in their favor, but truth in history cannot be altered without a blemish or a revolt, either without expanding on ignorance or war, okay? In order for mankind to truly understand the ramifications of bad decisions, there must be a reasonable foundation of perspective. I call that reasonable foundation of perspective history. That perspective is referred to as a reference. I call it a historical reference. Choosing to neglect the lessons of history literally accepts the pitfalls of ignorance. I personally choose to accept the lessons taught by history to guide the decisions I would otherwise make in the future. Why? Because I choose wisdom over ignorance. No one can literally or figuratively pull the wool over my eyes without my willful permission, because choosing to be ignorant is not an option for me. And as a result, I feel that choosing to be ignorant should not be an option for any of the listeners on my Advocate podcast. As it applies to the roots of racial understanding, when it comes to colonialism, political motivations played a crucial role as well. Sort of kind of work hand in hand. The competition among European powers for dominance, that being Spain and Portugal and of course Great Britain, was fierce, with nations eager to expand their empires to gain prestige and power on this now the world stage in history. Colonies, which is an offshoot of colonialism, colonies come from colonialism, were seen as means to assert national strength and security. The establishment of colonies allowed countries to protect military power. We've talked about that before. Control strategic trade routes and deter rival nations. For example, British colonization in North America was not just about settlement. It was about also a strategic move to counter French and Spanish influences in the region. The race for colonies often culminated in conflicts, of course, and wars as nations, plural, vied for control over lucrative territories, areas that had gold and trade routes and things of that nature. Social factors also contributed significantly to the rise of colonialism. The prevailing ideologies of the time, including notions of racial superiority and the civilizing mission that fueled the belief that European powers had a moral obligation to bring civilization to the so-called uncivilized peoples of the world. Okay, so now we have what you call the foundations of understanding racial tolerance and the lack thereof. Because in order for us to settle these colonies, you needed something called labor. And there is no better labor than free labor, which now brings into presence the need for slaves, which starts our foundation of racial intolerance. This paternalistic attitude of civilizing the uncivilized justified the subjugation and the exploitation of indigenous populations, Native Americans. Missionary efforts to spread Christianity were often intertwined with these colonial ambitions. I like to say, if you want something to happen that is favorable to you, you can justify it as long as you some kind of way mix it with Christianity, and somebody will think that you're actually a noble person. Missionary efforts to spread Christianity were just that. Okay, so in keeping that in mind, leading to the establishment of missions that took you to places where slaves could be bought, purchased, or used. And these places were Africa, Asia, and in some parts of the Americas. The belief that European culture was superior not only provided a rationale for colonization, but also led to the erasure of local customs, local languages, and local traditions, local cultures, to be more conforming to the European way of doing things and the European cultures. Additionally, the Industrial Revolution in the 18th and 19th centuries, it sort of intensified the push for colonial expansion. As European economies transitioned from agrarian to industrial, from being working in the fields and the farms to working in the factories, the demand for raw materials surged. Colonies became essential suppliers of cotton, rubber, and minerals necessary for industrial production. The economic dependency created a cycle where the exploitation of colonies fueled industrial growth in Europe, further entrenching colonial systems. So in summary, the historical roots of colonialism are deeply intertwined with a complex web of economic, political, and social motivations. The pursuit of wealth, capitalism, is it really about the price of eggs? The desire for power and prestige and the belief in civilizing mission for all played a pivotal role in shaping the colonial endeavors of European powers. Understanding these factors is crucial in analyzing the lasting impacts of colonialism. With these impacts continue to resonate in contemporary global relations today and the socioeconomic structures that we see even today. The legacy of colonialism has left an indelible mark on the world, influencing cultural identities and geopolitical dynamics to this day. So what we're going to talk about next on our next podcast is how this colonialism led to slave trade and also to slave or racial theories. So that's what we look forward to on our next Advocate with Dr. Rufus Lowe.